This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent. But this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
So let's just stop lying to ourselves. We throw around words like brotherhood, honor, print them on t-shirts, and pretend everything is fine. But really behind the station doors, sometimes there can be this internal friction that quietly eats our departments alive from the inside out. We tell ourselves we're invincible, but nobody wants to talk about the mental and emotional bill that comes due when you spend 15 years in a high-volume first fight on the fireground. We train our people to aggressively win the first 5 minutes of a disaster, yet we leave them completely defenseless against the quiet darkness that creeps in when the shift's over. Tonight, we're dragging out the raw truth of the dark. We're sitting down with a veteran fire service officer from the Houston, Texas area who spent 15 years operating in high-stakes, low-manpower trenches of high-volume public safety. His name's Heath Meredith. From frontline rookie and engine operator to captain to ride-up battalion chief and training officer, Heath has lived the relentless reality of short-staffed rigs and rural water challenges. He is an expert in the fireground decision-making, a sought-after speaker on firehouse culture, and the founder of the Third Alarm Cowboys, a movement built to bridge generational gaps and return the code of true accountability to the service. For years, Heath has been the architect of elite performance on the street, teaching hard, controversial conversations required to keep a firefighter successful off the clock. If you come here looking for these comfortable, safe, soft platitudes and excuses, you may want to find somewhere else to go listen to something. But if you're tired of the internal politics, if your firehouse morale is running on empty, and if you are searching for an unshakable mindset to survive the psychological demands of this life, you need to pull up a chair, because the absolute toughest fist fight you will ever step into past the threshold of burning buildings is the battle to save the human behind the badge. Welcome back to A Silent War Within. And today, making her podcast debut is our perfect, impressive, amazing social media manager and guest relations person, liaison, whatever your title is officially on the website. So happy to have you with us. Heath, thank you for stepping in with us. Thank you for coming to our firehouse table kind of conversation. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. You definitely make me sound a whole lot cooler than what I really am. So I appreciate that.
Well, I generally like to do that to my guest and myself. When I tell these stories and write these kind of intros and write the stories that we publish in Dark Horse Press, it has to be a little cinematic. It has to grab the attention. So I really love doing it. And you meet all the check marks. Everything on there is true. So Angel, you can go into your part and let's get into it.
People are so excited to have you. I'm a little fangirling over here. My guys are going to be so excited to hear your story firsthand. So we know when the firemen see a mental health podcast or a mental health clip or a mental health article in the paper, they automatically scroll by. They pass it. They're like, oh, no, that's me. I'm good. Tell me why it was important to you to say yes, to come join us, and that's a passion of yours.
Probably because I'm one of those guys. And basically just in full transparency for your listeners and everything, like I'm an open book on everything. We're probably going to talk about all kinds of stuff on this podcast, and most people maybe not even be comfortable with. And in starting that, like just in full transparency on my end, due to a lot of the things we may even talk about on this show, I all the ranks that you laid out, like I've held all those ranks. None of that is made up. And then actually about, I guess, 3 years ago, I ended up going and starting over as a rookie. And so I'm back down to a firefighter rank. So even after 15 years in the job, and I've been a captain nearly 9 at that point, I went to another department for a better climate for honestly, for my head and for my family to be better, and started over and rookied again at 34 years old. So if people, listen to this, whatever, they're like, he's not a current captain. No, I'm not a current captain. I was one for a long time. But yeah, my current rank is back to being firefighter, and it goes along with a lot of the mental health stuff. So I think that the fire service as a whole does a really good job this day and age about acknowledging that our mental health is actually a thing. One of my very close friends is retired from the Marine Corps. And he said when he was actually getting out of the Marine Corps, they were doing their, I guess you call it like debrief orientation to like coming back to civilian life. And they were, the military was given like their big spiel on, yeah, PTSD is a real thing. People are highly recognizing it with our military vets, especially after 20 years of combat, especially if you're in combat arms like he was and everything. But also understand that, and they're telling Marines that when you come out into the civilian world, the guys that are actually suffering the most from PTSD and don't get recognized for it at all is actually the fire department, because they are in it. And not only are they in it, but they're in it in their own community. So whether they're on duty or off duty, they're always in it. And so when he told me that, I was like, dang, man, that's like a real deal. So our military is recognizing it, but the fire service as a whole, man, like we are the absolute worst. And I've seen every 1-800 call me post on everybody's Facebook, the chiefs of the world's best about trying to prove we care about our firefighters' mental health. But then in turn, we're doing things like what our last episode ended up getting bumped because, I got to work overtime. So we'll mandatory people, 3-4 days a week and not think that has anything to do with mental health. But then we want to post on our Facebook pages for our departments how important mental health is to our firefighters. So for me, it's almost become a point where, and like in full caveat, like going into all this, I do have a lot of things that I'm very hypervigilant about, that's in my mind, that I'm paranoid about, that things that mess with me. I'll say that. And it's honest to God, not the blood and the guts from this job. It's not the calls that get me. It's the inside the firehouses that get me and have me, I don't want to say messed up because I haven't controlled or anything like that, but what get me spun up is the crisis of what our fire departments are doing. So that was really kind of what's made it where I'm like, fine, I'll be the guy to step up and say like what we got going on. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where the turning point for me is over the last 3 to 4 to 5 years, where it's like, hey, it's a whole lot more. Mental health is a whole lot more than just like the touchy-feely articles that people want to put out. There's so much more to it that somebody's got to say something.
Was there a point that made you realize that maybe it was better to have these conversations like this across the kitchen table versus in the clinical standpoint or the clinical view? Because a lot of times I know that our guys need to hear that, hey, somebody else feels the way I do. Was there a point that made you realize that?
Probably not one, like specifically. It was probably like a culmination of a lot of different things. So like I've had friends that killed themselves. I've had friends that almost killed themselves. And a lot of time, like almost like reflection, like time periods of reflection, like after somebody kills himself and you're like, how could they do this? And you're just like totally confused. And then you start looking back over, say, the last 3-4 years that you were working with these guys. There was signs all along. Like it was not, you didn't recognize it because you're in the shit with them. Sorry. You're in the middle of it with them. But then it's like, man, they said this to me a year ago and I didn't catch it. They were doing this a year ago. I didn't catch it. And I'm one of those guys that I really like to simplify because I think life is way overcomplicated. I think everybody tries to put like a super special spin on everything so that they can make their $1 million. And like for me, I simplify everything down where it's like, if one of my good friends, I went to high school with this guy. He left. He was 2 years ahead of me. He left, went to the Marine Corps, fought in Fallujah, came back, did what a lot of those guys do, searching for brotherhood, searching for camaraderie, comes to the fire department, was a badass medic. And then I guess throughout some time period, maybe 10 years of him coming back home after all that stuff, he started having a lot of mental struggles and whatnot. And I specifically remember him telling me multiple times, man, I'm thinking about going to re-enlisting because what I had in the Corps, I can't get. I thought I'd get at the fire department, but I can't get. I feel alone. I don't feel that brotherhood. And he would say that all the time. And I would just be like, no, man, it's fine. Like, the crew you're with, or yeah, the chief sucks, things like that. But I didn't catch it. And then he ended up killing himself after a few years. And then now looking back, I'm like, he was telling me all along that he was missing something, and I just, in the middle of it, I didn't catch it. And working in places that you do, sorry if I'm being too long-winded on this, but like working in places where you're really busy and you make a lot of
You're
runs,
perfect.
you make a lot of fires, you kind of become accustomed to the dark side, if you will. Life gets kind of dark in a lot of ways. For one, like we were talking before we started, like you get very fatigued, you get very run down, burnout becomes an issue. And then you work for a place where you're getting mandatory. And it's like it's a never ending cycle. You're so caught in the middle of the mud that you can't see what's going on around you. And I think that's where I was at that point in time. So I didn't recognize where he was or where some of my other friends were. That was one story, I guess, per se, that was kind of a wake up call. And then another has been doing my podcast. One of my original episodes, I had one of my very good friends on, which is Captain RJ Knepp. And he was going through like a really bad divorce, a lot of stuff with custody, all the typical crap that firemen got to go through because we make bad choices.
Mhm.
And he told a story on there where he had a suicide attempt. And he literally said to me in there, like, I went to work to escape my reality because I could go solve somebody else's problems when I'm on the clock, but I can't solve my own problems at home. And
Yes.
he literally used that as an escape, and he did it for years. And I was like, it was like a huge light bulb. I'm like, dude, I'm no different. I was doing the same. It's easier for me to go to work and work 96 hours on an ambulance making 20 runs a day than it is to be home when I was going through my divorce. And so like a lot of those things, just for me, it's almost like looking back, hindsight's 2020. You could see a lot. So there was just like example after example after example where I'm like, this really is a real thing, and somebody's got to get out ahead of it.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Kevin.
I think that you bring up some extremely valid points, man. I resonate with a lot of that. I went through a divorce. I can't even remember the year now off the top of my head. I think it's 2013, but I was working 96 hours on an ambulance. And that's kind of how I treated the ambulance service, was that, hey, that was my getaway, and really coped in that time very unhealthy. I never had a suicide attempt. Certainly got low enough to think about it and thought numerous times about, hey, I'll just alcohol poison myself. I'll drink until, I can't drink anymore, and hopefully that'll get the job done. But really, it was more the alcoholism for me during that time in my life that, man, I was just hammering away. And really it was to get that getaway, right? It was to have that relief of, oh, I'm so drunk, I don't have to think about this, and I can finally go to sleep. I can finally rest. So yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. But so one of the things that I think Third Alarm Cowboys does really well is it brings an immediate image of this rugged, independent firefighter. Like, you are, like, just looking at you when I first jumped on the screen, I was like, oh, this is a man's man here. Like, this is the guy, and you laugh at that, but really that is the image that firefighters give typically. I don't know if Travis Howes just released a book not long ago, and it's amazing, but to hear him talk about like that firehouse camaraderie that is just kind of naturally there, it does pull people into that world. But I think one of the things that people really don't take into account is that, hey, there's still a lot of old school, like, suck it up mentality in the fire service. So what is kind of that moment for you that you kind of realize, like, I can't get into this mindset. I have to do something different for myself.
So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that there's a time and place for everything. I think that that there is times where, and I'll be that guy. Like, I am that John Wayne guy. I was raised by my family, my grandpa's. I got basically two routes in my family. You either got the fire service, or you got the oil field. And of course, where I'm sitting right now, like you guys can see my daughter's trophy saddle, I'm sitting on a 500-acre ranch in Texas, and my cows are sitting right over there. I got to go feed them when we get off here. Like, I do have that that background where it is like, hey, you got to suck it up. Because there is times you got to. If you're on the fire ground and it sucks and it's hot because we're in Texas and you're on your second bottle, but the fire's not out yet, you haven't cleared your primary yet, you're exhausted, but there's nobody else coming, right? Our mutual aid is already here. There's nobody else coming. So at that point in time, it's like, yeah, we got to suck it up. Like, it sucks. You know, you're going to be chafed between your legs. Your back's going to be sore. Like you're going to hurt, but we have to do it now. But then there's also the other side of that knife where it's like, okay, but we just made, you know, and I work in the hood for people that haven't, like, I've spent my entire career.
We've been there.
Yeah, we've been there.
I've spent my entire career working in the hood in Houston and some of the highest crime rated areas in Texas. And so you see a lot of bad stuff. When you're in the middle of the chaos, like we made, and it made, you know, national news and whatever, like we made a pretty bad shooting, we made a pretty bad shooting of a pediatric that was a drive-by incident. It was all over the news and all that kind of stuff. When you're in the middle of it, you got to do your job. But then when you get back to the station and like the chaos, to me, I think is what messes a lot of people up because the chaos gets people so wound up, they don't understand when that is actually supposed to turn off. You know, and like you got to handle business in the middle of it. But when you come back to the station, and I ask people in my lecture all the time, I'm like, when you talk about, I talk about my brotherhood section and actually building a real brotherhood. Everybody knows what that's like on the ambulance or whatever. You make a gnarly ass PD call and like coming back from the hospital after you dropped off or whatever. And like nobody says a word, you know, the engine is dead silent. The ambulance is dead silent. You're trying to process the chaos because you have to. You get back to the station, you go take your shower, you go kind of trying to debrief. You got to let that chaos kind of come down. But that's the point whenever you can be like, all right, what now? What do we need to do now? And sometimes you may be at a station where like you don't get that opportunity. Like, boom, the next call comes in and we're right back at it. We got to go. And a lot of that stuff starts compounding. But at some point or another, that you still got to go have that little bit if you need the conversation. And like I'm a very weird individual in the fact that there's very few calls where I do need a debrief, but I'm also the one to say like there is some that I do need a debrief. And it may not even be like a formal, you know, critical incident stress management. Like I may not even need that whole deal, but like it's a bad pediatric call in which I run a call on a kid that fell into a swimming pool and drowned. My debrief I need is to go make a phone call to my wife for 15 minutes and let me hear my kids. Because I don't care how good you are. I don't care how many years you've been in. When you run something that, like, I have a 3-year-old child and I just ran a gnarly ass pediatric call on a 3-year-old, I need to hear my baby's voice.
Absolutely.
And that's the debrief I need. Now, I'll be the first one to say in one pay period, I made 3 pediatric drownings at my old department. 2 of them we didn't get back. 1 we did get back. My kid was the same age at that time period as the ones that drowned. She did not go in not a body of water that entire summer. Like we were scared of the lake, and I live 20 minutes from one of the most beautiful lakes in Texas. We didn't go to the lake. She didn't swim in the swimming pool. I had her like double life jacketed, even with the little floaties on. Like, and I don't know if people understand that or not, but like that is PTSD. When you start projecting your fears of what you saw on the call on your own family, your kids or whatever, like that is a form of the PTSD. And so it's taken me a lot to be able to process that and understand what it is. Like, it's not, I don't need Oprah. I don't need Dr. Phil. I just need to be able to like know that my kids, it didn't happen to my kid. And so for me, that's the debrief. Some people may actually need, like you run that gnarly ass call on a pediatric or whatever, they may need to have like an actual team come in and talk to them. So it's for me in the fire service, it's a lot of places. They're either all this or they're all that. It's all suck it up, or it's all, hey, we got to have kumbaya session after every single call. And we need to have, you know, the therapy dog come in. We got to have everything come in. There's no like nuance to it. There's no, hey, what works for you? Like, are you cool? Are you not? And that's a lot of that kind of comes into like the crew integrity stuff, which I could go way down the rabbit hole on that. But for me, that's kind of the deal. Is it's twofold on answering that question. There's times you got to be a hard ass and suck it up because there's nobody else coming. And then there's times you need to handle your business and do what works for you on the debrief so that your brain can process things.
Absolutely love that answer. It's
And
an
by no
angel
means,
knows.
man, I'm not a doctor. I'm not.
Hey, no. And when we have doctors come on or we have doctors review our stuff from time to time, we really see such a myriad of answers, and we really get to see the real clinical side of it as well. So no, definitely not a doctor answer, but it's an honest answer, and that's what we're looking for. I think that one of the things that we do really well, whether it be the fire service or EMS, there is this, and I like to think of it as the kitchen table effect. When everybody sits down to kind of have a meal, there's a certain level of peer support that happens, right? Whether we think of it that way or not, that is an outflowing of some of those things. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that there is such a relief when you sit down at that fire table and you start to just chat and things start to come out and people start obviously reliving calls and you get to kind of re-experience it from a different vantage point?
Man, my favorite place to be at a fire station is at the kitchen table. Like I preach that big time. Any station that doesn't have a good kitchen table is missing, honestly, one of the biggest tools that you can have. Because everything is discussed there. You start your day there, whether it's drinking coffee in the morning with the guys, which we do cheat a little bit at my station. We have a really nice lounge out in the bay where we smoke cigars and stuff. But other than that, every other meeting session happens at the kitchen table. So I think because it's already like a known commonplace, you eat there together. The station, the crew that I'm with, we cook our own meals. Like we're pretty big on having that time. And it's not just I think because everything is on the table there. Not only do you talk strategies and tactics, you talk the shit on the chief there at the table. You talk. We all joke, we sit down for dinner, and I don't care if we have dinner at 5:30 with the geriatric hours or if we've been running and we don't have dinner till 9:00. Regardless of what crew you're on, the wives are always going to somehow call when you sit down to eat. And so, we take bets on, whose wife's going to call first, which it's usually mine. Like, I swear to God, she can sense when I sit down at the table and I'm hungry. But, we joke about that stuff, but it's the truth. And then every other thing that you talk about, in some form or another, is a version of the truth that's coming out. So just naturally, if you're already talking truth, whether it's family stuff, shit that's frustrating you with your kids because your kids are driving you nuts because it's summertime and you're ready for them to go back to school already.
Amen.
All that kind of stuff is already at the table. So it's really easy for like other truths to come out. And I don't know, and I could be wrong on this. I think one of the biggest injustice we do is kind of, and a lot of people will ask or whatever, they'll say like, ask your guys if they're okay. Sometimes that's a little awkward. And I don't think we do a good job of actually like telling people like how to really do that. I think if you want to lead that kind of conversation, because it's like, you don't come back to the table and you sit back, you're like, well, damn, what'd y'all think about that pediatric call? That's
right.
You don't, I mean, but nobody ever really says like, how do you even start that? And so I kind of think like, and my captain is phenomenal at this because he's probably the most real person captain. Like a lot of the captains were always kind of distant and stuff like that. Like he's got kids that are the same age as my kids. He's only like 3 or 4 years older than me. We have a really good relationship. He's one of the guys that travels with me teaching. And he's my boss at the fire department, and I'm his boss with the Third Alarm Cowboys. So he's great. A very, very, very real person to me. And he does a great job of, we come to the table and like, whatever, say we make a bad call or whatever. He's usually the first one to kind of start the conversation and be like, that I really didn't like how that happened. I really didn't like that. Whatever. So I hate coming back on pediatric, but I think that's kind of one of the only things that actually bothers me. But he's like, he'll be the one that's like openly, he's like, man, why does that stuff have to happen to kids? And so because he's sharing, it automatically makes everybody else start being like, okay. It's not like a pressured conversation of, are you okay, man? And so like everybody's gonna be like, yeah, man, I'm good. But if he comes to the table and he's like, why is it the little babies that have to drown? that opens it up where it's like you're already seeing the thing that's bothering him. So I'm like, man, I don't know, dude, but this shit, it bothers me too. Like when I do get to heaven, that's going to be one of the first questions I ask.
Yep.
And so I kind of think that maybe it's just my kitchen table that's got that vibe, but that's how it is. And so it opens up everything where the kitchen table for us is 150% like truth. And I hope every fire department can have that type of deal. I know that's not the case, but that's how it works for us. So
I guess you bring up a good point. With a chief like that, and I guess I strive to be a leader who does a very similar thing. Like when there's tragedy or something that our team experiences, and I don't know if you know some of my background, but I'm a manager for a large pediatric and neonatal critical care team. So we go by air, ground, fixed wing jet all over the country if we need to. But really we see a lot of, especially here in Memphis, oh God, it's awful. We see a lot of child abuse cases, like a ton. So when we have those are particularly stressing for our folks. So I'll start a conversation very similar to like what your chief does. So why in that conversation and I'm going to pick on you firemen, but why are you firemen who walk into burning buildings every day and don't bat an eye? Why are you willing to share in that kind of atmosphere? Why are you willing to share there, but you're absolutely terrified to go into anybody that's professional help and share in that way?
That's a good question. I hate trying to be able to be the one to answer for everybody. I could say for me, I don't necessarily have that problem, mainly because I have experience in dealing with professional settings. So my parents put me in when I was in high school because I was a mean kid and I loved to fight. So like I started having to deal with a shrink whenever I was in high school because they thought something was wrong with me. And after going to multiple anger management sessions and everything like that, like the therapist or whatever he was, I guess he is a psychologist, whatever, because he could write prescriptions. So I'm gonna assume he was not just a counselor, but he tell my parents like, ain't nothing wrong with him. He's just mean. But for me, I don't. Dang. I don't know. I don't know if this is a good answer, but I guess maybe it's the I don't want to say I'm accustomed to it because I don't go all the time. I went whenever I was a kid, and then I went whenever I was going through a pretty gnarly divorce. I basically wanted to make sure that I was squared away. I think maybe it's a misconception or a lack of education and understanding. Like you can go to that formal doctor, if you will, I call them that, just a formal doctor's office, and like they're not going to burn you. I think that firefighters trust other firefighters in a setting because they think that it's not going to go anywhere. Because I'm like, hey, if I talk to my crew that also is having the same problems, that ran the same call, I know it's not going to go anywhere because I got dirt on them and they got dirt on me. Whereas they don't want to go to a doctor and talk because maybe they have the feeling that like somehow that's going to get leaked and it's going to end up screwing up their career. And I tie that together with my understanding of a lot of like the military guys that I've worked with, that they got out of the military and they had back injuries, they had bodily injuries, but there was a long time period where it's like, hey, if you have a back injury, like you can't, that's a disqualifier to get into the fire department. So they would lie about their back injury from military service so they could get that fire department job. And ultimately where that was all coming from is when those cases did happen, I don't think they happen as much as people think they do, but they did happen. It was the doctor leaking that information back to the fire department. Like, yeah, man, he's got a hurt back from military service. And so whatever, it would be a disqualifier. It would hurt them in their job. And so I would think maybe some of that is left over from that. And it's just maybe an educational point that needs to happen. And then also maybe some doctors need to have the understanding that like, if we are opening ourselves up and coming in on this, like you can't burn us on it. You can't, even if the fire department, like my fire department does bring in counselors and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they leak it, but it looks really awkward when the fire chief is bringing in counselors to come in and talk to guys about drinking or drugs or things like that. Like I know this because I've talked to the chief. He's bringing it in to try to help the guys because we've had a lot of alcohol related incidents at my department. But when the guys see the chief is bringing in a doctor to come talk to you about addiction issues or mental health issues, but it's kind of sort of fire department sanctioned, there can be that paranoia of, well, man, if I go in there and say that I'm drinking, a bottle of whiskey a day, they're going to run back and tell the chief I'm drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. So I think a lot of that is kind of self-inflicted on why guys won't do it, because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to get in trouble with their jobs. So it's easier for them to just not say anything in that setting. I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's just kind of what I think.
I love it. I love these long-winded answers. You're doing great for a podcast guest. I mean, I love the long-winded. You take the spotlight away from me. I don't have to say as much. And the listeners love that too, because nobody likes listening to me talk. It's all about the guest, right? But I think that's a really good answer. I think that it is, there's so much trust within not only the fire service, but every public servant kind of environment. And it is easier to talk to our brothers or our sisters, that stand right beside us in all these calls. I can have a conversation with Angel that I would not have with somebody in the general public. But I also think, and one of the things that I experienced very early on in, reaching out to someone for professional help, were soon after my divorce. It was not long. I overwhelmed the counselor, like with some of the stuff that I'd seen and dealt with and was dealing with. And, obviously I was going in for support about my divorce, but once they start asking you all the questions like, what do you do for a living? Okay, what's that look like? What do you experience in that? And you start talking about some of it. The counselor had no idea what to say. I mean, they're like, oh gosh, how do you see this? So I think it's important that if you're going to reach out for professional help, that you go to somebody who's trauma informed, and you go to somebody who, if it's available in your area, somebody that works with first responders in some extent or has been a first responder themselves. And sometimes it's harder to find. And if you guys ever need those resources, please reach out to us so that we can provide that. We've got a state list that we can get to you from every state that we've gotten from conferences and other things that are vetted counselors in each state that you can reach out to. That obviously, in the day and age that we live in, technology is a fantastic thing. And many of these counselors are now doing either only telehealth or they have the telehealth option to choose from. So, you can get with a first responder, a trained counselor. And I think it's super important. But I think this transitions well, because the next part that Angel will kind of go into kind of plays into this a little bit. So Angel, I'll let you kind of take it away and go from kind of your standpoint and your specialty. So you can take that for sure, because that's not mine.
So he's from a social media and public relations perspective. Like, after starting Third Alarm Cowboys, how quickly did people start reaching out and who looked fine on duty but were falling apart at home? Like, at what point did they realize, hey, he gets it?
Ooh, pretty much almost immediate. So my first few episodes were very inflammatory. And it was, I've actually, I'm 120 something episodes in now. So people kind of laugh at me when they go back and listen to the original stuff. For one, my software and technology was not Riverside. So it was absolutely horrendous. I don't even like listening to it because the audio quality was terrible.
Same.
And it was audio only. And so, and a lot of the stuff, like I was carrying a lot of anger, for one, and I was kind of more or less trying to make a statement. And a lot, like, people will listen to my stuff and they'd be like, if you don't like a 4-letter word, don't listen to my podcast. So I was very much so into that. And that grabbed a lot of attention. I mean, pretty much immediately. And I started talking about, which obviously I was talking about real life issues, but it was, honest to God, like within the first 3 episodes, I'm getting messages from guys talking about their divorce, talking about their fire chief, talking about their fire crew, talking about drug addiction, alcohol addiction. I mean, it was absolutely immediate where, and guys would just, I mean, it was almost, you could go through my DMs on social media And aside from the department they work for, the state that they're from, damn near everyone's story, which is now thousands and thousands of DMs, everyone's story is the same. And, there's little nuances in there, obviously, but everyone's story is the same. And it's like, Jesus, man, like, it was a major slap to the face for me that I'm like, I started off like basically trying to be a voice for like the guys I knew around the Houston area. And then within 3 episodes, I'm getting messages from coast to coast. And I'm like, for
Wow.
one, man, I've never even been to Seattle, Washington. How the hell have you heard of this podcast? And it was just
Right.
like that. And so it was honestly, it was pretty much immediate. And it was that same deal. Like, I'm dealing with this. Thank you for saying it, blah, blah, blah. I was going home every day and feeling like I was the only person on the planet. And then now I know there's 2 of us. And I'm like, no, actually, man, there's thousands of us. So
Right.
pretty quick, I guess, is the answer to that.
Yeah. So in real life situations, what does that peer support look like in the firehouse on the daily?
For one, like, and I just released an article this week actually talking about what's crew integrity. And of course, I immediately, it's like everything else, I got tons of comments, tons of shares, tons of reactions, whatever. And it was basically like the same answer over and over again. And, I think, and I'm the guy to beat up chiefs. I'm not scared of beating up a chief. But I think that we get so caught up in the fire service, especially today's day and age where staffing is an issue everywhere. We can't hire enough medics. We can't hire, everybody's struggling. We're too busy trying to fill like payroll numbers and basically put asses in seats where we forget about that simple crew integrity. And it's like, it's very, very simple, but it's basically like the peer support comes in of actually knowing your guys. So like if I rode with y'all on a truck for, let's just say a month, I'm going to start knowing how y'all tick. So, and especially you start riding like with me and my guys, we've been together 3 years now. And like, of course, obviously I kind of have a little bit of a heads up because we travel the country together. We spend a lot of time together with families and all that. But even if you took all that off the table, just riding with these guys every week for 3 years, I know what makes them tick. I know when they come walking in at night after we made a call or the next morning and they sleep later than what they normally do. Okay, that means they're tired. When they come in and they work their other job before shift and they're dragging ass, like I know they're tired. Little things like that I start picking up on. It also goes into the calls. If we come back to the calls and I know that normally, like, especially say I got, the rookie that we've had right now, we've had him probably 8 months. This dude he was a D2 collegiate football player. You can't beat this guy down. He drives me insane because we'll make a fire and we're coming back and us older guys are like, I need an ibuprofen, I need some electrolytes, and I need to go to bed. And this dude's like, I'm ready for the next fire. We make a call and he doesn't come back with that same level of like enthusiasm. Okay, I'm starting to recognize some stuff. So that's where that, I guess, like the peer recognition or whatever, or, having that strong crew, it all comes down to crew integrity. Like when you're bouncing and it's basically like, hey, you're a certification and a number, and I'm putting you on this truck for today, or I'm putting you on that truck. I can't recognize that stuff in a guy that I don't know. And so I think the fire service does a terrible job at that. Leave guys with guys that know them. And there's always going to be people that move stations because they're promoting or things like that happen, but that's a choice. But if you'll put people where they know the person, that peer support group can be way stronger. It's just like at home, right? If you don't have like, I'm very fortunate. My parents live 100 yards that way. My brother lives 100 yards that way. If I need somebody to watch my kids, that's my support group because I need to run to town and go do something. I holler at my sister-in-law and my brother. I'm like, hey, I'm sending my kids up to your house, right? That's your support network at home. It's no different at the fire department. But if you don't have that because you're from a broken home of the fire department where you got split parents and one lives in Alabama and one lives in Tennessee and you're just stuck here on your own or whatever, that's what we're doing to our guys. And we wonder why they have no peer support network. It's just not complicated. So
yes. Which leads me to think 2 things. When I left the fire department, I'm telling you, it was 6 months. Somebody be like, well, how's the new job? And I'd be like, I can't talk about it. The new job's great, but I miss my guys terribly. Like I was with them for 8 years and I had the best lieutenant and the best captain that there was. And I knew where the Lord was leading me. I knew where I needed to be. I knew what I was supposed to do best for my family, but losing that family atmosphere at the fire department, it wrecked me for a while. But that also leads me to think, what were you hearing from the guys that were reaching out that their spouses were seeing at home before they recognized, oh, there's something wrong. I need to get some help.
Ooh, probably the same thing my wife says. My wife can tell whenever I'm spun up pretty bad because I'm just like everybody else, especially in our industry. Like, obviously, your temper rises. Like, that's going to be one of the first signs. Like, if somebody starts getting short with you, something's on their mind. They may not even know it. And like a lot of times, I won't even know it. My wife's like, "Hey, you're being short," and I'm like, "Am I?" She's like, "Yeah." Like you're being short with the kids. You're being short with me. You're being short with the dogs. Like you're being short, and so that's a big thing that people will recognize when somebody starts getting a little short. Obviously, there's like deeper stuff when guys aren't sleeping or they're having the bad nightmares. And all. I'm fortunate. I've never been that guy. I don't. The only nightmares and like I'm probably not the best on the mental health deal, but I have never had like the suicidal things. I have homicidal tendencies. So when I start getting mad and everything like that, like I'm not trying to hurt myself. I'm trying to hurt, the lying ass fire chief or the crooked ass mayor or whatever that's
Right.
hurting me. I'm going to hurt them. So I'm kind of that guy. I'm not the one that's ever gone to a dark place and want to hurt myself. I'm like, God gave me 5 daughters because if he didn't, there'd be some dead fire chiefs out there. So that's kind of where my head goes. And so my wife can understand that
Right.
when I start getting short, it's due to something at work. And honestly, most of the time, it has nothing to do with the calls that we even ran. Most of the time, it's a toxic nature. It's lying. It's backstabbing. That kind of stuff that's going on. So for me, that's probably the deal. A lot of the spouses, guys being disconnected. I've gotten that message. Like they come home and they're disconnected. They're being very distant, either from them or from the kids, or they're not going home. They're pulling that card like what we talked about earlier with my buddy. Like they're pulling that card of like working all the OT that they possibly can. And the wife is like, I just want you to come home. Like at this point in time, we don't need the money. I'd rather you be here. And they're just like, no, I want a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And honestly, I probably see that more than anything, where guys are working a lot of overtime. They're working their part-time jobs and they're not going home and they're hiding from it. They don't understand that like you kind of got to go home. And it's
Yeah.
not even necessarily a bad relationship at home. It's just they actually would have to turn it off if they went home. And the wives, a lot of times, I think wives are better at recognizing it than husbands are.
Hmm.
Husbands just get mad. A lot of the husbands I've met, they don't even like their wife being in the fire department because she's up there, around a bunch of dudes. So that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is the wives recognize a level of distance that's kicking in and then a shorter temper.
So there's a few things here that I want to pull out, and you made a statement that really took me back some years ago, and Angel knows this about me. Most of the listeners have heard me reference this before, but so I'm in my second and final marriage currently, and yeah,
Same.
and very early on in our relationship, I found myself in an affair, and because I was in this affair, having to keep up with the lies, having to do all the things, I didn't want to go home either. And I think you make the way you put it was really ideal for what's coming next, is that if you go home, you have to turn it off. And we hate to turn it off. And she looked at me that day and said, before she knew that there was an affair happening, she said, "You love this ambulance more than you love me." And I remember being so hurt by that, because no, I don't. I was unhappy in other areas and chose a path that did not align with what I believed, did not align with my core values as a Christian man. It didn't even go with the identity that I had put on myself as a man, period. It was just one of those things that started as a friendship and just slowly faded into something else. And I think we get so enthralled in some of those things sometimes, whether it be a relationship like that, or whether it be something else that you focus all your time into. But we tend to be almost like that little ADHD kid. And this is coming from the large ADHD kid. But we get so hyper focused on one thing. And me and Daniel Sundial from Danson Artwork talked extensively about this. We get so focused on this one thing that turning it off feels so scary to us. And talk about that a little bit. Have you ever had that moment or seen friends or seen colleagues to where the quiet is the most dangerous place, where when it all stops, everything starts to fall in a little?
100%. I mean, I'm that guy. So so much so that I've even created my entire side business is still fire department, right? So I'm a firm believer, and people argue with me on this. I'm a firm believer that like basically every first responder is an addict. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's drugs or alcohol, but we're an addict, because you're not going to do this type of job, whether it's on a box, whether it's on a fire truck, or whether it's being a cop. And that's not a form of addiction for you. That's the reason why you take a guy like me who likes to be at a hot house and you stick me over at the slow station and I'm going insane. I am a firm believer in that. And so I think that it really kind of starts going like with what you're talking about. Guys start making those types of mistakes, because that's what they are, because it's chasing an addiction. You get into the science part, but it's a dopamine rush, right? Like having an affair is a dopamine rush.
Absolutely. That's it.
That 30 minutes of a good time is a dopamine rush. That's what it is for us.
Yeah.
So we get that same thing, whether it's fighting fire, whether it's, you're going to a major entrapment on the ambulance where they're, calling for this, or whether you're running a CPR and you're trying to run all the stuff through your mind of what all that you got to do on running that code. Like that is all an adrenaline rush, some form or another. And so we're addicts. We are addicts. And me coming from a guy, which I still drink, but I don't drink like I did when I was younger, and I'm not doing the drugs that I was when I was younger. So, and like even now, I don't even take Tylenol now, because I was pretty bad into the pill game whenever I was a younger guy. So even just that motion of taking pills opens up a door in my mind where I'm like, ooh, I kind of miss that. So I don't do that. And that's been 13 years ago. The thing when it comes to like the fire department and chasing that, you got to understand that, and I do talk about it at the end of my lecture, but you got to understand eventually you're not going to be able to do it. And I think that that's kind of where we are. And I don't have an answer for that yet. Like I have like 12 years left, but I am kind of planning my exit plan from the fire service of running calls, but I'm doing it in a training route. But I don't think we, as an industry completely, I don't think we have an off-ramp on this. Just like the military, you hear like every SEAL in the world talks about it. When they get out of the SEAL teams, they're used to running on a train that's doing 1,000 miles an hour. And it's basically a one-dimensional job, right? Because there's nothing outside of the SEAL teams that you skydive and you dive in the water and you kick doors down and you blow shit up and you do. There's no job that I can go sign up to do that. There's no job that I can go sign up to be a firefighter except for being a firefighter. So we're kind of like a very one-dimensional thing that we do for 20 to 30 years of our life with no off-ramp. And so I don't necessarily have an answer, but I can say that like, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've seen it with multiple people, man, like Houston Fire Department. So Houston Fire Department is one of the most well-funded pension systems in the entire world. And which I don't work for them. I work for a county department that's inside the city limits of Houston. But because I've spent my whole career with Houston guys working with us part-time, I know a lot of their stuff. And most of our chiefs are Houston guys. But basically, people don't know the reason that their pension is one of the most well-funded is because guys stayed on the job so long that all the money that they paid in, they died and they didn't get to keep their pension, and it's in their clause of the pension. The money rolls back into the general fund. So their entire pension is literally it's like high 90 percentile self-funded. And it's because of that, because guys don't know how to get on that off-ramp. And then when they do, there's a bunch of guys that I know that literally spent 40, 45, 50 years on the job. They retired, and within 1 year of retiring, they died. And so their money rolled back in because they outlived their spouse. I mean, just all the horror stories that go along with that. But like they worked their whole life to get this pension, and it goes back to the damn city. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an answer per se for that, but I do have a diagnosis of what it is. I just don't know exactly how we tell firefighters, like, outside of this, you need to build something else. Outside
Mm-hmm.
of this, you need to have an identity in something else. For me, it's this ranch. For me, it's my kids. I know a lot of guys don't have that. They're living in an apartment complex somewhere, you know, and they're not married or whatever. So like their outside life is chasing girls at the bar and being a single fireman, which I did all that. I had no problem with that. But there's no off ramp for a lot of people. So I get what you're saying. I don't have an answer.
It's so funny the way that these stories and kind of what we do here at A Silent War then gets kind of woven into my personal life somehow. I was just having a conversation not an hour before I was finally able to get on. I was late, but which I hate. That's one of my pet peeves. But I was having a conversation about an hour previously with Jason, who is the other host for A Silent War Within. Jason and I were talking just earlier about this retirement thing, and Five Arrows Forged, which is his coaching company, is our first official founding sponsor for the podcast. So we're actually getting sponsored by his company. And of course, it's so that we both can gain a business reputation from it and grow ourselves and be better. In reality, Angel will probably get the majority of the investment because she does most of the work. But it's funny that retirement thing comes up when you talk about the quiet of the room, and that's really the most quiet that firefighters, EMS, whoever will have at the end of their career when it's all over with. What are you after this? And I think that it's so important that even if you are that single fireman that's out, for lack of better terminology, chasing tail and living the single life and doing what single guys do, it's still important to build something that you can have that, whether it's like you're doing in education and podcasting and like we're doing and podcasting and a nonprofit that will allow us to train other first responders. And I'm going back to get my counseling degree and all this stuff. Whatever it is, you have to find something that when that quiet room finally hits, when you're 45, 55, whenever you walk away from it, you have to have something that's going to dull that quiet a little bit. And I think that that's important. So what do you say? And you mentioned it in some of your stories, but like the pills, the alcohol, and I've had experience with both of those myself. Like the pills and the alcohol, you're sitting across from a firefighter who's struggling with this. How do you force him to look himself in the mirror and see what he's become?
Man, I actually had that story. So, I mean, we all know the fire service is very, very, very small. So one of my original episodes that I actually talked about and put all my business out there, I ended up having a guy reach out to me, and this has been a couple years ago now, because I guess I've been doing my show for like almost 4 years. That was one of the original ones. So it's probably been 2 years ago the guy reached out to me, and I just told my stuff, like totally told my story, everything I did. The basically it was my come clean on myself episode. And it was honestly, I put all my business out there, so I don't have any skeletons in the closet. I don't want to be one of these dudes that's like, oh, you know, I do something and then, you know, I have somebody try to come after me and say, well, he did this 20 years ago, whatever. I'm like, no, it was already public, so you can go on with that. I'm that guy. So I put all my business out. And this dude comes to me, calls me. I actually knew a guy that I used to work with 10 plus years ago, got my number through him, calls me, and he's like, hey, man, you telling all the stuff you did about how you took your pills, about when you took your pills, just, I mean, literally laying out the itinerary, if you will. He's like, dude, you were literally talking about me. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. I don't even know you. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, I was so mad at you because I literally had no choice but to look in the mirror because I was doing the exact same stuff, doing it the exact same way. And so he ended up, whatever struck a nerve with him, he went and looked himself in the mirror, and he ended up going to the Center of Excellence up there, the IFF one. And anyways, now he's been sober for, I guess, 2 years now. But it was literally like that. Like, it was just me being so brutally honest about the stuff I did that guys had no choice but to be like, yeah, he's talking about how he used to take 2 narcos before he go to the bar. Then at midnight, he took two more narcos so he could take a chick home. And then, I mean, anybody that knows anything about taking pain pills and doing extracurricular activities, you're kind of like a Superman. So there's no denying that. And I would say that stuff. And he's like, I'm doing the exact same thing for the same reason. And so anyway, it just is funny. And then now, small world, but now that guy's ended up, he's actually came to work at my department. And he's on my shift. So I get to see him all the time. He's like, who would have ever thought something that you said 4 years ago would end up creating that? But I guess for me, it's just really just being the brutally honest person that tells my stuff. And so it would strike a nerve with somebody, and it's probably going to piss them off, whether, especially you start talking about cheating on your wife and things like that, they're going to be mad at you at the time. But then they're going to look at themselves in the mirror, and then your words are going to be ringing in the back of their mind. Cause like, there's not a game out there that I haven't pulled. And so when I put all that out there, some guys get mad cause I'm giving up the secrets. And so, they might feel like they can get caught, but then at the same time in giving up the secrets, they're like, I'm doing the same thing. And so they may have the maturity at that point in time to change their ways, or they may hide behind it for another 3 or 4 or 5 years, but eventually they're going to be like, okay, I pulled the same game as this guy, doing the same crap. I can get better or whatever. I can fix my life and eventually be in the same place as him, like healthy or whatever, good relationship at this point, whatever. They can see a light at the end of the tunnel if they kind of more or less fix their ways. And it's just for coming clean. That's the only way I feel.
Right. So a massive piece of your mission at the Third Alarm Cowboys is to rebuilding true, authentic brotherhood. In an industry plagued by industrial friction, toxic leadership, administration, moral injury, how do we protect a crew at the floor level in the field when leadership is actively breaking their spirit?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what my entire platform has kind of become into.
Yep, I'm
and a lot
interested
of
for
guys have
this.
heard of the Firehouse fist fights and
I love it.
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, honestly, like, for me, it's not all talk. For me, I'm not just trying to sell a shirt. Obviously, it's part of my lecture. Obviously, I do have the shirt and stuff, but like, I was telling y'all before we got on, we taught the new hire academy at my fire department. And at my department, and I encourage this everywhere. I know it doesn't necessarily work for EMS, but at a fire department, we have silver badges and we have gold badges, right? Captains and up or lieutenants and up have a gold badge. Silver badges is EOs and down. We have silver badge meetings, and then there's gold badge meetings. And it's very, very, very understood at my department. Like, I can literally look at my captain and say, hey, Cap, silver badge meeting, get out. And he respects that. And he walks away. And he knows, because we have the understanding, if it goes to a gold badge, that means it's got to have paperwork put on it. So we have that very, very established line. Now, because they get to have their officer meetings and they get to go plan the department and do all their stuff and plan policies and all that kind of mess. So if they can have gold badge meetings, by God, we can have silver badge meetings. And it all starts off like literally these guys, when they came in the other day, and this was their new hire orientation, they did their week long, they had their few days in admin where they're doing their paperwork crap with admin. And then I get them for 3 days on the fire field. And there was several silver badge meetings that go on during that where I'm like, hey,
Right.
it's performance-based conversations or it's cultural-based, whatever. And I tell these guys, I'm like, you're coming in the fire service. A lot of you never worked in this before. Like, you're going to see A, B, and C. You're going to have these things go on. I don't care what department it is. All departments are the same. The patch is just different. But one thing you must do starting day one is understand that communication at that kitchen table is where it's all going to start. Guys are going to talk strategies and tactics with you there. They're going to talk about, we're going to talk about our wives. We're going to talk about our kids. We're going to talk about everything under the sun happens at that table. And another part of that is going to be that brotherhood talk. When you're, if you didn't pull a line, you screwed a line up on that call, I'm going to ask you, why'd you mess that up? You didn't catch the hydrant. I'm going to ask you that. And it goes on, so on and so forth in having that truthful conversation, not just about operations, but it may go into other things like, hey, man, why didn't you take the trash out? Why didn't you put the dishes up? You're making us look bad as a crew You need to step your game up. Whatever that looks like, we have to have those conversations. And I literally start that from day one. I've done that my entire career. When I was an officer, and this is how brutal I get, but it goes back to that. You want brotherhood, you want to be truly making a difference. It's a brutal ass conversation. Females, you're a female, okay? You may not like this, but this is literally what I would do as an officer. I don't necessarily do it now because I don't have that position in power. But I will literally look at a female, and this is actually the first time in my entire career I haven't had a female on my crew. Chiefs would actually put the females with me because I would do this. They couldn't say it, but I knew it was the deal. Female on my crew, come in here like, look, I love you. This is my expectations of you. You're a female in the fire service. It's going to be brutal. You are going to have to step your game up, and you're going to have to prove the guys wrong. Like it, don't like it, whatever. But that's the truth of it. The other truth of it is this. You're a female. I got 5 daughters, and I'm married. Females got problems. I don't have that problem, but females got monthly problems that y'all have to deal with. Okay?
Right.
I'm sorry. You were born that way. There's nothing I can do about it. But this is the deal. I'm married to my wife, and excuse the language on this, but this is literally how I would say it. I'm married to my wife who I sleep with, and I don't tolerate her being a bitch. I understand you have bad hormone issues, but that's basically, I'm sorry, but that's a you problem, and it doesn't excuse you getting to be a bitch to the guys at this station. If you come to me and you're like, Cap, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, whatever, I need some space, I will let you have that all day long. You go handle your stuff just like I tell my daughters. Like, if you're in a bind and you're hurting, because I don't know what that's like, but I understand it's a real thing. I've been sent to the store to buy plenty of pads and stuff in my life. Go in there, and if you need your quiet time, go have your quiet time. I'm not going to take that away from you, but understand that you don't get to come in here and be rude to people just because of that issue. And I have yet to have a female on my crew that actually had a problem with that. They're like, Cap, we actually really appreciate that. Because most people are scared to death of having that talk, right? Most dudes are like, I'm not going and buying 10 packs. It's some cotton. Get over it. Like, it's cotton in a
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right.
But like, scared of it. And so, like, even when it came to that, I was always just brutally honest with that. And every female that ever worked for me truly respected that. And it would even go, I mean, that level of conversation, regardless of the topic, but I like to use that one because that blows people away the most. Like, you said that. Yeah. I mean, why not? Right. And so for me, it was a lot of just being brutally honest, even in those really awkward ass conversations. But when you say that to somebody and you tell them like, hey man, I understand if you need some quiet time. I understand if your emotions are all over the place. I get it. I don't know what it feels like, but I get it. Just tell me. Right. And then you can go to your room. And if the chief comes down, got some smart shit to say, I'm the station captain.
I'll handle it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I feel about it. And I think a lot of guys in our industry are so scared to death. And I don't know if it's because I blame it on HR a lot. Like on my platform, I blame it on the lawyers. I blame it on HR. I blame it on the corporate America, what I call corporate rot that has come into the fire service. I blame it on all that because that is ultimately what it is. But the guys can fix it. The guys can start having those type of conversations at the kitchen tables and amongst each other and everything. And there's nothing HR can do about it. Because I have yet to have an HR director that was at my station at 2:00 in the morning. Never had it.
Right.
So we can fix that internally and they don't even have to know. But it takes the guys being able to be like, hey, silver badge meeting, gold badge meeting, hard conversation. And I don't even necessarily like calling them hard conversations because to me, it's not hard.
Right.
Like another caveat to it, excuse the lewdness, but it's just kind of what it is. I'm like, man, I'm married, right? I married a Cajun woman who's 5'5" and 110 pounds. This woman is amazing and we have a great relationship. But if you listen to us, sometimes we literally sound like a Jerry Springer episode. And I live with her. If you think ever in your career that you're going to live with people just like you live with your spouse, just like you live with your mom and dad, just like you live with your kids, and at some point or another, they're not going to piss you off, you're absolutely delusional.
That's right.
Just like when my wife will fight, I'll hang up on her, she'll hang up on me. There'll be some 4-letter words that get dropped and all this. I may not talk to her for 4 days when I'm away at work. Come back home, we sit down and it's like, hey, I was mad. I was annoyed. I was on my 20th call. We hadn't ate. We hadn't slept. I'm sorry. I don't even remember what all I said to you. If I said some hateful shit, I'm sorry. Let's figure out whatever we need a solution to the problem, whatever that looks like. And so in the fire station, it's no different. It's literally no different.
Right.
You gotta smell these people. You gotta hear the snoring. I mean, everything. Like my EO, I love him to death. The dude is literally a brother to me. Literally, I could call him right now and say, I need you to drive. And he lives on the other side of Houston, which is about 4 hours from me. I could call him right now. It's 6:20 here. That dude would be here by 10:20 if I called him right now. Does he drive me insane at the fire station? Yeah, because I'm tired of watching and waking up and hearing MASH on the 1,000th time. I can literally, when I wake up or go in there and I can hear the MASH intro song, it drives me insane. Or Emergency. That's the only two things that the guy listens to, and he's the oldest dude in the station. Well, he gets the remote. So, just in saying all that, like, people are going to piss you off in the station, no matter how much you love them. They're going to piss you off, just like your mom and dad piss you off, just like your spouse piss you off, just like your kids piss you off. So understand that and don't hide from it. Just hit it head on and be able to talk about it. And you may not be able to talk about the issue right then. If they piss you off right then, walk off and cool off. Maybe it's the next tour. You got to come back and be like, hey, man, last shift you pissed me off. But that's just what it takes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say to a young firefighter that if you recognize that they were already feeling burned out, maybe not even from the calls, but just dealing with the leadership? What advice would you have for them?
I actually get that a lot. I get that a whole lot. So kind of giving a little background of like where I work. We have the city of Houston, which is, HFD. They got over 100 stations, 4 different shifts. So you basically, you have 400 homes that you could choose from throughout your career. But they also have, tons of extra things. So like they have their own arson division. They have a massive rescue, multiple rescue companies, but they're a massive rescue department. They have hazmat. They have down at the academy, they have their own in-house academy and regional academy where they literally train people as far as from like Japan, sends firefighters to come train there. So basically there's lots of specialty auxiliary places that you can go. Where I've worked, the sad truth about where I've worked is most of the county departments are roughly 2 to 4 to 5 station departments, and they don't have all the specialty stuff. So that conversation happens a lot because basically what we do is we fight a lot of fire, and we run a lot of med calls. And in working at places where, guys come and they want to do like me. My dad was one of the founding members of our hometown regional Deep East Texas, but it's actually Nacogdoches Fire Department. My dad was one of the founding dive team members. So they have a full regional response for swift water and dive. My dad was one of their original divers. So I grew up in the water. I got my first grab, was in the water in a swift water incident. Like, I like that water stuff. Where I've worked, the departments I've worked at, the chiefs, even though we're in the Bayou City, right? Houston floods. If a squirrel pees, it floods. And I mean, I don't know who planned it.
Yes.
If you build cities at sea level or below sea level, they're going to flood like that. Hello. But you can't tell these fire chiefs that stuff. So a lot of guys will come in, they get burned out because they're tired of just running fire alarms, med calls, and regular fires. And over a 20-year career, that gets old. And then, they get screwed over by promotions because also every department I've worked at, completely different promotional processes. Everyone I've ever been at, totally different game that you're playing by, totally different command structure that you're playing by. And that stuff, 100% takes a toll on you. And I've had those conversations where these guys come and basically what I redirect them into is it's like, for one, I'm going to tell you the grass is never greener. From a guy that I jumped a lot of fences getting sold a dream. People beat me up on my platform. Well, how many departments have you worked for? Well, I've worked for about 7 departments, part-time and full-time, because I was that guy. Like, you come and sell me a dream. The first 10 years of my career, I bit off into it. But then I get over there and I realize grass was not greener. It's the same toxic crap over here. And so I explain that right. First and foremost. I tell the young guys like, hey man, yeah, that department may have shinier trucks, but that's because there's that much more bullshit over there where it looks like.
That's right.
And so, for one, being honest with them about it. For two, really try to get to the bottom and the root of like what they want out of their career. Because if a guy like take that for instance, if they're like me and they want to do Swiftwater, but they're stuck in a department that's going to always refuse to do Swiftwater, they're always going to be unhappy because they're going to have that piece missing. Now, I'm old enough in my career, I'm kind of swallowing my pride on that and just realizing like it ain't worth me going and starting over again when I'm over halfway through my career. So you got to kind of be honest and truthful in that perspective. But if it's a super young guy that's getting burnt out because of administrative stuff and all that, being honest and explaining what they're going to look at no matter where they go, and then really find out what they want out of their career. Because if they want to do a 20-year career, they want to do a 30-year career, you're going to have to tell them like, hey man, it's going to be like this. No matter where you go, you're going to have these pain in the butt administrations. There's always going to be the new policy that comes out every other day, no matter where you go. That is the reality of what you're looking at. The other thing is finding out tactically what they want. If they want to ride an engine forever, or they want to go to a ladder truck, or they want to become a paramedic, you got to find out what they kind of want out of their career, or they're always going to be unhappy. And then the other thing is really, really, really explaining to these guys that chiefs are at the end of their career. Regardless of how long and how greedy they want to be, they're at the end of their career in comparison to the young guy. So say you take that 1-year guy, whatever, and they're starting to get tired of the old crappy chief. If this guy plans on staying in 30 years, regardless that chief will retire or not, they're going to be dead by the time this dude is 30 years.
Right.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
Explaining that basically, and I actually took, I guess it was Rich Gassaway's class years and years ago. I forget what it's called, but it was a leadership class. And literally that was a portion there. That's probably one of the main things I took away from that class was it's like, hey, you will outlive the chief. If you stay here long enough, you will, no matter how many contract extensions they get and how many more objectives that they have on their whiteboard for their contract, you can outlive them just simply because they're older than you. So I kind of try to tell people that too, and just understanding that, whether that chief's got 3 years left or 30 years left, if you've got 40 years left, then you can have 10 years without this sucker. So just that's kind of what I do. And the brutal honest part is some guys, this job is not 30. It's not for them for 30 years. If they're a couple years in and they're already experiencing that many issues and they're having that much burnout, that's kind of where it goes into that whole, like having an off ramp, understanding like, hey, there is more to this. If you're already feeling that way and you've only been in 5-10 years or less, this job may not be for you just because it's a lot of crap that you have to eat. And so another 20 years of this, what's that going to do to your head? It's obviously not going to be good. So enjoy this job. I mean, and I'll use him as an example. I love him, but he's on my crew that I'm at now because I'm having to ride up as a driver. This guy's been in 10 years. He's realizing that. He's always had the dream of wanting to be a commercial pilot. So, I'm putting his business out, but it's all good. He's actually in school right now. He went and got the loan and he's in full-fledged, absolute shoulder over his head deep in pilot school. And so he's using the fire department as a sustained income, but now he's chasing his dreams of getting to go be a commercial pilot, which is something he's wanted to do since he was a little kid. And so he has an off ramp going into something that is going to be a whole other avenue. So having that conversation like, hey man, this maybe not be for you. Is there something else that you love that you've always wanted to do? Maybe it's time. And use the fire department. Some people will hate me for that, but we have a really good schedule with the fire department. And if you can use this good schedule to your advantage to build something else, do it.
Absolutely. Heath, we kind of reached the end, and I really hate this part because it's always kind of the end of a good conversation. But if anybody has listened to the last 50 plus episodes, almost 60 now, you guys know how much I love a guest like you've been. Honest, no BS, come at you straight, like not gonna sugarcoat it for anybody. And I love that about you. Thank you for coming on and just sharing a piece of yourself and talking about some things that may not have been comfortable to talk about. But I really do appreciate the open honesty and the fact that you're out there kind of doing very similar work that we are, and that you're out there saying that, hey, this is not something that should be looked down upon. And a lot of this is administrative moral injury, and that, hey, you get mad about that. And I love that you're so, just in the episodes that I've been researching and really falling in love with what you're doing, like, you'll say some stuff that nobody else is going to be willing to say. And I love that. I really do love that. Angel turned me on to you because she was so excited to get you to answer her correspondence. And she's like, guess who I got? And I'm like, she's like, Heath Meredith. And I'm like,
Who is that?
Who's that? And she's like, go look him up. And so I went and looked you up. And man, you really are. You're doing some good stuff. So I really like it. So I always give everybody a chance to kind of give the shameless plug, give your podcast, give where you're streaming at, all those things, and any projects you may have going on that you want to tell us about.
Yeah, for sure, man. And in all fairness, like I'm no prophet by any means, but I think that the platforms out there that are moving away from the cookie cutter, prim and proper way of doing things, those are the platforms that are growing. And
absolutely.
So I think that us collectively, y'all, me, I can name, a handful of other guys that have become my close friends at this point, of guys that are just doing that real hardcore, like, hey, this is what we're going through. That's the ones that are growing. And it's because it resonates with real people. I think as a society, we're kind of done with the PC cookie cutter. Everything is just
100%.
peaches and cream, like way of life.
That's
I think
not true. Yeah.
Everybody's done with that. So, and my whole deal, like from the very beginning, is in doing the podcast and all that, like I know who I am, right? As a person, I know who I am. I have nothing to hide. Like, the only person I got to impress on this planet, and the only person I'm actually accountable to, is that Cajun wife of mine. Things come and go. Life comes and goes. But I've always had the attitude of, like, when I sit at my kitchen table, which is this same table I'm sitting at, when I sit at this table, the same guy that I'm on that podcast is the same guy that sits here with my 5 daughters and my wife. And I have stuck by that. And that's what I believe in. I think that's how you actually make a difference. And obviously people are resonating with that, because that's why our platform is growing so crazy. But, really, when it comes to what we have going on, I'm just going to keep building what I'm building. I joked in the beginning, like, I've pissed off some of the biggest names from the very beginning, man. Like, I've lost friends behind what I've done. I've lost jobs behind what I've done. And so people, that's the thing people got to understand too. Like, I've literally had jobs where I was a shoe-in for chief jobs, everything like that. And literally the podcast cost me a job. They told me that in the interview. So understand that when you stand up for real stuff, or you're doing real things in life, there's going to be consequences. And I love everybody makes the comments about, yeah, you got freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of consequences. Yeah, like, I understand that. And I think everybody understands that. But collectively, as a world, if we all got to a mindset of, like, telling our real stories, telling what we actually believed in, they can't. There's 350 million Americans, right? They can't put us all in jail. They can't take all of our jobs, because who the hell is going to be the fireman then? So that's firefighters as a whole. I believe this, and really, truly first responders, because I kind of group us all together personally. That's just in my head how it works. Like, I call everybody guys. That includes the chicks too. We're just all guys. We really can run the world, because the society, our communities trust us with everything. We're the only people in the world that I steal this from Mo Davis, which is a chief at Houston, but we're the only people in the world that a mother with a dying baby will hand their kid over without knowing you from Adam. We have that level of power. So why the hell do we not act like that the rest of the week? Like, understand that there's a reason why when a firefighter union puts a stamp on a politician, that politician gets elected. It's because of the power that we have, because we're supposed to be this level of service, if you will, whatever word you want to put on it. So we'll act like that all the time and stop hiding behind it, stop being scared of it. And that's kind of the direction I took with the platform. with the Third Alarm Cowboys and everything. So understand, like I know that there's consequences, but I also feel that collectively, if we all just told truthfully who we are and the things we believe in, then it would fix a lot of the issues society looks at.
Yeah.
And man, I'm just going to keep building on that notion and talking about the things that come to my mind. And really and truly, my podcast is just, it's a wild shit show because, I talk about what's on my mind. I don't have a script. I don't read from a teleprompter. I don't even have notes. I go into a show and I'm like, what I want to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk about what pissed me off yesterday. So that's kind of the entire,
man.
it's not formal or anything, but it's just literally me being me. And it's either you guys got to listen to it or my poor wife has to listen to it. And sometimes it's both.
It's usually both in my case.
Yeah, same here. And so that's what we've done, man. And really what's happened with that is people have latched on. People have latched on, and it's opened us up into this whole other deal where I'm traveling and doing my lecture. We went from, I think we did seven trainings last year. That's lecture and hands-on combined, but 7 trainings last year. We're doing 18 this year. I just booked another 3-day training conference this morning in December. So I guess that'll put us at 19. So the message is resonating. So, anybody that thinks that like, hey, I don't want to be that guy. I don't have that voice. I don't know. Like if you're being open and honest, people will latch on. And then in turn, it will turn into something like you could have never convinced me 2 years ago that we'd be traveling all across the country. And I got chiefs from California booking me to come teach an engine ops class. I would have told you were a liar, but that's what's happened. And so we're just going to keep building on that. And, guys out there, if you're interested in either our lecture, which is a very hits you in the mouth, like you want us to come out and fix your guys because your guys are down the dumps, they're not doing training, they're not taking care of business, things like that. Or the big portion of my job in my lecture is bridging generational gaps. That's one of the biggest sections. I probably spend an hour on working on that. And it's because I have the perspective of being more or less, I don't want to say a middle-aged guy, but a middle generation firefighter. I have kids that are 18, or I have a daughter that's 18, another one that's 16. So my daughter could go to fire academy right now. And so I can relate to that group because I live with that group. And then I know the old heads because I've worked with them and they're all my dad's generation. So I'm kind of in a very special spot where I can truly bridge the gap. And I'm not like some of these other people out here that are hypothetically talking about it. I can talk about real stuff. Right. So, if that's something the guys are interested in us coming out, whatever. And then we have our hands-on class, which we're probably one of the only engine ops hands-on classes across the country that literally teach we call it from the pump to the nozzle, but we literally teach everything. And it's, we are the only cadre that's out there of instructors that is breaking down, doing the pump mechanics and doing it in a realistic, real life pump ops. I'm not teaching you coefficients and all the textbook stuff. We teach guys how you really pump on a fire ground, and then everything else included, which is, forced entry, throwing ladders, doing search and rescue off the line when it's just 2 people on a line, like all the stuff that we get to do. And I'm very, very blessed of everywhere I've worked. I have you call it a blessing or a curse, depends on who you are, but I've had a very special career in the sense that I worked in areas that burned the world down, and we did it with like no help. And so like the guys that I'm with now, last year, we made 63 working structure fires as a crew. But then the other dynamic is we're in the city limits of Houston, but we're an incorporated county department. So basically what that means in turn is we don't have infrastructure. So we do all those fires with no hydrants. We do them all with tanker tenders. So I'm in a tanker house. And so we do all the rural water supply, like what all, your very rural volunteer departments do. We do all that mess, but we're doing it with mid-rises inside the city limits of Houston. So we're very special in what we do, but it makes us good at our job. So that's my little shameless plug on the training. And, the guys I bring with me are guys that I actually fight fire with. I'm very, very, very picky. As people know from the podcast, I'm picky. I don't put my name on people. I don't fight fire with you. I ain't bringing you in. And so that's kind of limited me at times, but at other times, like I know my guys are not full of crap. We do this crap. Yep. Literally, funny story. But everybody loves a story. We taught a regional training in Southeast Texas 2 weeks ago. It was our Friday, Saturday, Sunday class. We got off work. We worked 48.96. So get off work, go home, come in, teach for 3 days. The very next day we had to be back at work. In our 48, that one, we made 5 working structure fires on that 48. And we were doing the exact stuff that we taught with doing drafting and all that kind of stuff, having to set up dump tanks, all that. The only thing we did cheat, we didn't have to set up a dump tank. My EO actually set up a hard suction drafting off of a pond, a retention pond, which people don't know, but basically when you build a city at sea level, you got to have somewhere for the water to go. So they put retention ponds all over the place. So the guys are literally drafting not even 24 hours on a working structure fire right after we get done teaching. So we're very special and very blessed in the sense that we get to do that kind of stuff. But that's what's made our platform take off. Is it's no nonsense. We actually do this. The stuff I tell people in the lecture, the conversation, like what I'm telling you guys, like how I talk to people in the station, it's what we do. And so it's been very, very special. And I love being able to come on platforms like this. Y'all are actually only my 4th interview to ever actually do. So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So I haven't done a whole lot
Couldn't
of other deals, and y'all's has actually been different than any other one I've ever done. Most of them have all been like, tell us about the fist fight shirt. But yeah, I've only done 4 interviews now, and so it's very, very special to me to get to be a guest on other people's platforms and that people even give a damn what I've got to say. So I really do appreciate y'all. And yeah, anybody wants to get us Third Alarm Cowboys on everything, and go to thirdAlarmCowboys.com. I'll leave y'all with this. A lot of the people have really, really liked the articles that I've been dropping on social media, the long format articles. Those have gotten very popular because that's just me pouring my heart out on whatever subject it is that I'm doing. And you can find all the full articles and the real articles themselves on thirdAlarmCowboys.com. I've started a whole page on there called the TAC Journal. And it's basically just me journaling my thoughts in an article format of like what's going through my mind on whatever subject at the time. And I'm dropping one of those a week on my website. So, the last one was the what is actual crew integrity. I did one before that was it's not my job. I mean, things that are hitting every single person that you're dealing with at your department, whatever your patch looks like, it's things that I'm going to talk about. And so that's just kind of my shameless plug for guys that want to go and follow us, go to the website, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff, man. And I'm just going to keep being me.
Yeah, we love that. And guys, just like Heath, we like to deliver episodes that do punch you in the mouth. And I do think that this is one of those that Heath brought the thunder, if you will. He punched us in the mouth. He told us what it was about. And Heath, I'm really appreciative that you came on and you said yes to a mental health podcast that many people shy away from. So I am very appreciative for you. Guys, you know where you can find us, but really I could go through and tell you all those things, but really the hub of all our information is asilentwarwithin.com. That's where you can find everything. I write on there as well. I started writing for Dark Horse Press. Make sure you check them out. Jason is our co-host. Jason is now our founding sponsor with 5 Arrows Forged. He is a registered coach, and if you want somebody who's really been through the job and really walked through the literal fire, he's the guy. So reach out to him. Also, PTSDstrong.org is going to be one of our partners very soon. Go check them out as well. So we are super excited that we are gaining more traction. We are growing just like you, Heath. Again, thank you. And now there is merch out there for us as well. You can go find t-shirts, hats, all these things. And you may say, okay, kid, where does that actually go? Well, that goes to get us out into the community and to do training and to go to conferences and to really be side by side with you guys and really talk to you one-on-one and give you the opportunity to get peer support or to get counseling or to get coaching or whatever that is. It gets us out there so that you guys can meet and greet us and that we can give you goodies and that we can be there at all those conferences, giving the little bags out that everybody loves. Everybody loves a goodie bag at a conference. But really, it's to grow this platform even more because we want to reach as many people as possible with this message. You don't have to fight alone. You don't have to struggle in silence. There are people, even though times like that feel very isolating, there are people who have been through very similar things and have felt very similar ways. You don't have to feel like you are by yourself, because you are not. So as we grow, keep up with us. Make sure that you're reading all the things and seeing all the things. And the biggest part of what we do is obviously the podcast itself. Make sure you leave a review, all those good things that all the streaming platforms want you to do to tell them that we're good content. So Heath, again, thank you so much. And as we always close our show and Angel's premiere episode, you did a great job.
Thanks.
As we close every show, be safe, take care of your mind, and we will talk soon. Bye, everybody. The war isn't fought in the flashing lights or the chaos of the call. It's fought in the quiet after the rig is backed in and the boots are off and the noise dies down. If today's conversation hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Share the episode with a brother or sister on your shift who needs to hear they aren't fighting alone. Take 10 seconds right now, rate, review, and leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening on. Every review, every comment, and every share helps us break through the silence that we are fighting against and help those providers who are bleeding out in the dark. We read every single message and we'd love to interact with you. None of this happens in a vacuum. A massive thank you to our incredible team here at A Silent War Within. They work tirelessly to make sure this platform stays standing. And a special, non-negotiable thank you to our founding sponsor, Five Arrows Forge. Without the belief and backing of Five Arrows Forge, this show simply would not exist. Founded by firefighter, author, and NLP master coach, Jason Minershagen, Five Arrows Forge is bringing real, operational level mental health readiness to first responders, men, and fathers. They take mindset coaching out of the classroom and put it right where it belongs, the home front. If you are ready to break repeating cycles, shift limiting beliefs, and lead your family with conviction, go visit them right now at fivearrowsforge.com. If you're struggling and you need real vetted resources, or if you just need a safe place to land, go to our hub, asilentwarwithin.com. Everything we do, every resource we've gathered is right there waiting for you. Remember, the war in your own head stops the moment you stop fighting it alone.